Oh, hello.
Hello.
Well, welcome to the Hellcase Cup 8. I was not ready for that, in case you didn't realize. And I'm joined by Hawker. We're going to be going straight into the playoff stage. Obviously, they brought me in because, probably because I live quite nearby, if I'm honest. But yeah, you've been here, I think, pretty much the whole time doing the online broadcast. I've realized that my chair is a lot lower
I
than
know, I
yours, so
noticed
I'm,
that
I'm
too.
sat quite far down, but I'm not going to fix it now. It's too late.
It's too late.
And yeah, we're going to be getting into the playoff stage. Obviously, everything to play for. I'm not sure what the exact amount of money is to play for just yet. I'm sure that's going to be shown on the screen because, from what I believe, the way it works at Hellcase is you get your 10,000, and then you add a lot of money that's basically been thrown in. So throughout all the cases, obviously, you can go to the website and open those, and some of the money will be going into the prize pool. But yeah, we got a fair few decent teams going through. Obviously, myself and yourself, that's a great English there,
Mm.
have been over at WePlay. So we've actually cost a fair few of the CIS teams like Nemiga, ESPADA, forZe, well, forZe in the early stages, Hard Legion as well. So I'm interested to see how they're going to come into this one, especially the mentality for some of the teams. I think Nemiga and ESPADA you can consider maybe overachievers in that tournament. And then obviously for forZe, very, very far down in terms of underachieving. So I'm basically looking forward today to see how especially Hard Legion and forZe come out and actually play.
Yeah, we'll get to see how they match up against some EU teams as well, which will be nice. See where they are in the world, because Endpoint are a team who've been doing pretty well recently. Finally, we've got a UK team doing something that's somewhat relevant in the world, which is kind of nice, Tom.
Yeah, I suppose you call them UK. Like most of them are UK,
Yeah.
which is nice. They've subbed in a couple just to try and make things a little bit more interesting. But obviously, Hard Legion were probably one of the most disappointing teams we watched recently. So, if anything, in terms of form, they haven't looked great. They've lost to a fair few teams I would consider to be worse than them. So, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how they bounce back from this. And I think the real issue is from what we saw, teams are kind of used to them now. Like you had the aggression of Krad as something that was massively successful in the first RMR event. You saw them actually take down the likes of Na'Vi on maps like Overpass, Dust2, and it was like, hey, maybe this is a new well, superstar team. Then they came into this one. I don't think they won a single match and went straight out and got eliminated. So obviously a tough group, a very tough group. Obviously with Na'Vi, VP, and then the Gambia youngsters who impressed us quite a bit throughout the tournament. So I'm looking forward to see if it was just a bit of a bad day at the office, they weren't quite able to face versus the best, and now we'll come into a tournament where competition not quite as high pressure, but still some decent money on the line.
Yeah, I hope so. I think something else they've been missing as well is we were talking about how they've brought in Rage instead of Speedak, and Rage probably hasn't quite been at the same level that
No.
Speedak was playing at, in all honesty. And that's a somewhat scary matchup heading into this one, where Crucial has been in really good form for the Endpoint guys. He's been their highest rated player, so he's been killing it recently. Crucial's been great for this Endpoint team. In general, though, the entire team's been playing pretty well. Their star players have been showing up. I think as well, something that I've talked about before with Endpoint is that when I talk to MiGHTYMAX, he used to be a pretty bad fragger statistically. Now
Sure, I
he's
love you for that.
no, because he admits it because he was in all these bad roles and Endpoint were just constantly changing players. So he always said, I can't really frag because I'm just running in first. Now he's got a more structured team. You see his fragging start to come through a bit better. He's not anywhere near as bad a fragging leader as he used to be. He's actually not too bad on the stats anymore. So, yeah, there's no real weak point on this Endpoint team, I think, and that's a big benefit for them heading into this.
Yeah, and I think maybe if we dig a little bit deeper into maybe some maps that could come up. I know the nuke is well, I want to say permaban. Obviously, we've seen Endpoint play it a few times, but both teams don't actually like to play nuke. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something along the lines of a Dust2 because it seems to be a very common ground, especially I feel like the further you go down in some of the levels of Counter Strike, you get a lot more maps like Dust2, Mirage, Inferno, especially because it's just maps that everybody knows how to play, and especially when you consider especially I've said especially like 4 times. Very tired today. The fact that basically you've got a lot of middle maps and people playing all of the time online. Like you'll see these guys with 20 plus maps on every single map in the last 3 months. It's a real grind. I'm gonna go ahead and say for a lot of these teams, the player break probably doesn't even count as a real break because it's the tier one flying around the world normally, and playing a lot of big events like your blasts, you're going through your dream hacks, then your RMRs like in between as well. So those guys are going to be like, okay, they're taking a break, whereas the teams, well, I would say below them, are still playing just as many matches. It's just the fact that they can't really take those breaks. They're not playing for 150, 200 grand. Sometimes it's like 30, 40 grand. So you need to continue that grind to try and get yourself a little bit better. And it could actually end up with some of these tier 2, tier 3 teams catching up a little bit, like utilizing their time well. I think there's plenty of rosters, for example, like Virtus Pro, where they've got some work to do over this player break, even though I think like definitely take a week or two off for your mental state.
Yeah.
But you've got to try and utilize that extra time where teams who are already ahead of you can maybe afford to take a bit of a break, whereas you yourselves, that's your catching up time.
Yeah, definitely. And I know Endpoint are a team that have already been grinding hard, and I'm sure they will continue to do so, because I think they really are looking to try and be a breakout team. And I think they're probably one of the teams that I think are favorites to go far in this. Just based on what I've seen from them, I've been impressed. They've been doing pretty well in the Home Sweet Home Cups, where a lot of the times we're losing against Complexity, which is understandable. But there was that one that they won. I think they won the last one. They ended up beating forZe there, I'm pretty sure. So they've had some pretty good results over on the Endpoint side recently. And like you were saying, Hard Legion, I think they lost their coach a couple of days ago or something like that.
Yeah.
There was some weird stuff going on, and just in general, the teams looked kind of off.
It was probably because I played him in a matchmaking game and aced his team with a Negev, so they basically just decided...
God. That was a quick veto, by the way.
Yeah, they've just banged
boom.
it out in a couple of seconds. Yeah, the first two maps almost exactly what I was sort of pointing at. We do normally end up on like a Dust2 Inferno. Train could be an interesting one though. Like both teams play it to at least a decent degree. Hard Legion actually with a very high win percentage on a map that they don't necessarily pick too much. What I will say though is we did watch them play Na'Vi. Now obviously Na'Vi a very different ball game, but they got absolutely banged out. That was one of the most dominant performances I've seen in a very long time, and they seem to really struggle with aggression, which I don't think Endpoint are ever really going to shy away from. They've got some very decent individual players who've been around for a fairly long time, and it is one of those situations where you almost hope that like Endpoint maybe get a little bit of extra backing. They could like, I don't want to say upgrade because it sounds a little bit harsh, but there's definitely some extra talent, especially within the UK at the moment. Like you look at someone like Alex, and I don't know if he could add a little bit of depth. And I think there's one name that everybody's knowing is coming is svyat. But well, for all I know, he might still be going off to China or something.
Who knows?
So it's very confusing at this point. But yeah, at least this team is easily, I think, the best UK team we've seen in a very, very long time, even if there are a couple of others in there. But we just, what we do in the UK is if somebody, well, especially in England, if somebody's very good at something, we like to claim them as our own. Like, for example, you take your Andy Murray's. If he wins, he's English. If he loses, he's Scottish again.
Of course.
So that's the way we're going to look at this one, of course. As we go in, if robiin wins this one for the UK, he is a Brit. If he loses, he's Swedish.
Yeah, you're talking about aggression as well. robiin is one of the guys who is very capable of just pushing every single round, it seems. Especially when I've casted him against some of the UK teams where I think he knows he's just better than most of them. He's happy to push. He's happy to get aggressive. Same with Thomas. These guys, when they get confident, they can absolutely just push all over the place, go for all sorts of plays, and we should be ready to get underway in Dust2. I think we just had the knife round, and we'll get underway shortly. This should be a good one here on Dust, I think. This is where we might get to see that AWP battle come through in particular, where I was talking about Crucial potentially having the edge over Rage. We'll see if that comes through, though.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Obviously, you can see the dynamic prize pool on your screen at the moment, which, of course, is down to the fact that if you do open those cases on Hellcase, I think there's an SLTV case you can open, and that will give some of the money over to the prize pool. So you are in with a chance to get some pretty banging skins, but more importantly, you're basically going to help pay the bills for some of these pro players. But yeah, I'm kind of excited to see what Hard Legion we're going to see. I think when you kick a coach, obviously there's a reason behind it. Like something hasn't quite gone right. Maybe the mentality in the squad is not something that's going too well. And I'll be honest, when I look at this Hard Legion roster, I only really see one standout player, and that's forZe. I don't really consider anyone else that could make it to like a tier 1 level, and he's the youngest in the squad as well at 20 years old. I've seen bits from Krad, but not enough to really impress me. Like, I think he's very hit and miss, and I think if he's figured out, as teams like VP and Navi did very, very easily, he was just useless. Like, he just got wrecked. And then that's a bigger issue, because I think Rage is an AWPer who's not aggressive enough, doesn't take enough fights. Like, well, I think I was pulling up stats when we were doing the CIS RMR, where he had the least opening duels taken. Not even one. Like, if it was, oh, he's gone 5 and 10 in opening duels, like, that's a bad game. I can accept that. It happens. If you're taking the least opening duels when you have players, for example, like svyat, who is a pure support in-game leader role, kinqie's actually very supportive as well in terms of the squad. So if you now have forZe as someone who normally plays very well, Krad as someone who is very hit and miss, and then Rage or AWPer, who is then not really doing too much. The rest of the team are the support players, so it just means that a lot of squads are just going to be able to dominate them.
Yeah, especially if some of these Hard Legion players have a slow game, some of those stars, then they can really struggle, especially on a map like Dust2, where we need the fragging to be there for Hard Legion. We're getting underway with MiGHTYMAX having some flashbangs, backing off to the B-bomb site. Max likes to play this mid position with these flashes on the pistol. He likes to try and support both sides of the map, but he's been forced all the way back to B. And now Hard Legion can move up through short, and they can be pretty happy in doing so. There's no presence on this A site from Endpoint.
Yeah, this already looks like they're basically set up for a retake scenario on A, leaving that kit towards the B site crucial. The goal really is to try and take some on the cross, but I like the fact that we do at least have a P250 onto Rage, so he has a little bit of an advantage when it comes to these duels. forZe as well, still trying to hold on to long control, but yeah, bomb goes down, barely any damage done, and for Hard Legion, this is a prime after plum position. Krad, though, peeks out and really doesn't connect his shots. It gives some space for the push to come forward. Rage gets one while blind. And already it swings back and forward. That's disgusting from Thomas, though. He's just taken 2 heads off and leaves kinqie all on his own. Thomas has just ruined them in the pistol round, and I have to say, I like his name.
Yeah, that is a scary start if you're Hard Legion. You don't want guys like Thomas showing up like that early. He's the kind of guy that will absolutely be capable of taking over a map by himself. And you see the aim already on display on some of these Endpoint players there. Thomas landing shots. Even though it didn't look like a good position for them, Hard Legion didn't really make the most of some of those initial fights. And that's where Thomas comes through. Oh, wow. Those flicks back and forth are so fast. He ends up getting those 2 kills. Last shot was nicely taken as well. Endpoint off to a good start, but here comes the force buy from Hard Legion. Galils and some MAC-10s as they go for the A-long play.
Of course, normally in this situation you might get an AK or 2, but with so few kills coming up onto the board, they don't have any of that extra cash, so it's left them in a bit of an awkward spot. And normally we talk about how the force buy can come in for the T side being better than the CT side, but they really did so little damage that that's actually not the case. forZe is playing with a MAC-10 no armor, which, no, like they don't know why that's a thing, and he's upgraded to a Galil at least, but it's still, I don't know why your star player's not got a rifle. I don't know how that's been a thing at all for the squad, and they're getting picked apart at the moment. The CT side relatively aggressive. Again, we're going to see this push through long, and to be honest, another bomb plant might actually get them into a second force buy. That's if they don't win this already. Doing a fair amount of damage. Crucial and Thomas both going down, and well, we've ended up in a 3v3.
Yeah, somehow it's come surprisingly close in this one. It was looking good for Endpoint, but they're going to have to work hard to win this round. forZe doing even more damage without the Kevlar. He doesn't care. He's got another kill. And robiin and Surreal have got to try and work this up through the ramp. Not going to be easy for them. They've got the smoke for cover, but svyat sitting on the back of it. This crossfire is so brutal for the CTs. There's no way in for them. kinqie closes out the round. And even without the AKs, Hard Legion win that force buy pretty comfortably.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how, I'll be honest. A 3v5 situation, you've got the 2 openers, you have them almost surrounded when it comes to the retake, and every single Hard Legion player hits their shot, but I think they've got away with one there, and, well, got themselves onto the perfect start, pretty much. It sounds weird, considering they lost the pistol round, but to reset the CT economy as they have, of gonna leave Endpoint with no choice but to try and force this one. They do have the Deegs available and a scout for Crucial, and Again, they do have the players who can take over rounds. I actually got the chance to have a chat with Thomas in Atlanta over some wonderful chicken wings, something the Americans do a lot better than anywhere else in the world. I'll give them that. There's definitely a few issues there, but the chicken wings bang. But yeah, it's interesting that he was someone when he played with Contact who was basically willing to sacrifice anything for the team, play supportive roles, jump across, and basically take shots for people. And now in this roster, he's come in as pretty much the star. Like, he's the guy you look to win rounds. He's the person who at least I think is the best individually on this squad. And yeah, it is interesting how moving to this team has actually given him almost new life, because in other rosters we've seen, he definitely wasn't the star.
Yeah, I think that's probably the role he's best in as well, playing as a star player. I think that's probably where he is most comfortable. So I think he's happy that he's able to get back to that. And it's also not just about Thomas anymore, which I think was the most important thing. Because for a long time, it felt like Thomas was just the main man, and there was really not much else on this Endpoint roster. But now you've got guys like Crucial stepping up. robiin can still be a bit hit and miss from what I've seen, but Surreal's always reliable. They've just got a bit more across the board now on this Endpoint side, which is good to see. And you can see the odds over on Unicorn are reflecting that. They've got Endpoint as decent favorites here.
Yeah, I can't say I'm overly surprised. Like, the form from Hard Legion over the last few weeks has been poor. It's understandable that the changes come in, although it is just their coach being removed. And I don't know if that's the core problem for this roster. I think in terms of their ability to adapt, it seems fairly poor. Like, their actual, like, if they get going, if they get rolling, they play well individually, then sure, you can have a pretty good game for yourself. But if things start going wrong, that's where you really see Hard Legion struggle. I don't think in terms of depth in strategy, there's too much there. And even just in terms of in-game leading, I'm not sure that there's a massive amount coming out. So, but now, in a very good spot financially, and, well, more importantly, going into the next round, the purchase is still going to be weak. I'm not sure how Krad's just gone down through that smoke, but I'm just going to accept it and move on.
Just move on, because Forrester might be dead as well if he's not careful. He's down to 13 health. Thankfully, kinqie's there to babysit him, and they should be fine to save over these guns. They really do not need to hunt this, Tom. I don't know why they are going for these kills against the USPs, but they're going for them. They're getting them, even if they are losing some players in the process. Just Thomas left at the end here, looking to see if there's anything for him to do. Forrester's low on health. I'm not sure he's going to find that angle, though. kinqie's here to close out the round. So a little bit uncomfortable, but it's all good for Hard Legion. They only lose a couple of guns, and Endpoint's money still isn't ideal heading into this round. They're not going to have it all. See some of these USP kills coming in down mid, which you don't see too often. That was lovely from Surreal. But I think Endpoint's buy is going to be pretty limited ahead of this next round. They're definitely not having an AWP. The utility is somewhat missing as well. So this is potentially a chance for Hard Legion to get rolling early here.
Rage now with the ability to basically take a battle down mid that Endpoint can't really challenge. Gives quite a lot of space over to the T side, and you can see it's a relatively passive hold actually from Endpoint, which is fairly interesting. Like, a lot of the time when you have utility missing, your financial state isn't fantastic. That's where you try and get a little bit more aggressive, because you have to bear in mind right now they don't have a kit, so a retake would be a pretty horrific position. And I'm not sure how well this is going to go. Of course, fire spreading upwards is always fantastic, but robiin has managed to hit the timing in middle, forcing Rage to fall back and actually gaining a fair amount of space for the CT side.
Yeah, robiin's someone who likes to hold that mid position pretty aggressively. He doesn't like to let people just take that away from him. He doesn't want to get smoked off. It works out for him this time round, as Hard Legion weren't ready for it. And Crucial is committed to the A site here. This is the issue of not having the AWP. He's pretty alone in this position. Crucial's going to have to step up in a big way. He's got a flashbang which he could use, and he hears these steps, but that flashbang's still not being deployed, and robiin's looking to help out. Crucial gets the first and the second kill from the back of the site. That might make all the difference. As the flash goes high, he can continue to delay, and Endpoint have got this full rotation. It's going to be so difficult at this point, but Hard Legion are finding frags. Krad in particular getting 2 kills on the backside. Rage sneaking onto the site itself, but with 20 seconds left and Endpoint still all around this site, Hard Legion have got more to do. It's Rage in a 1-on-2. 15 seconds on that clock. This is going to be so tricky for him. He's still searching for kills, still searching for a way in. He doesn't realize both players are on short, so as they push his position, he has got a lot to do. Almost lands the flick, but robiin's there to stop him. Endpoint getting themselves a second round win.
Yeah, it could have been much cleaner than that, though. Like, a lot of the aggression that we saw in the latter stages of the round, I feel like if Endpoint were just a little bit more patient, they could have kept that nice and clean. And considering that Hard Legion, because of that early reset round, that force buy into the second, which they won, they've actually got a hell of a lot of cash going into the next. So you've got svyat, I believe, Krad and forZe as well. Actually, Krad's not got that much money. It's forZe and kinqie, in fact, that have the majority of the finances. And it means this buy is going to be almost flawless. And for the CT side, although this is a much better buy than the last round, they're still right on the brink of a reset.
Yeah, they get the AWP in the hands of Crucial, though, which could be a big piece of the puzzle for them. He's going to be holding long. In fact, Endpoint have got 3 players ensuring they hold on to long early. forZe will be forced away from that position, but Hard Legion look to take some map control elsewhere. Currently focused on mid. Now that Endpoint have held long, though, they can just rotate these players back to the bomb site. They can have a pretty comfortable start to this round. And it all goes quiet with Hard Legion taking short control early in the round, using a little bit of utility. Endpoint do seem pretty happy to hold passively, though, especially now that they've got that long control on lockdown. svyat's hoping to find a gap in the one way, but Endpoint not giving anything away. And MiGHTYMAX will rotate over to mid to help robiin. Stacking 2 players in this position could be the right call, because Hard Legion have got a couple of players looking at those mid doors right now. How's he still burning?
Don't know how Max has been wrecked so hard by that. The flames not being extinguished, even though they were. 45 seconds left. It is looking like a mid to B is potentially on the cards. The problem is they're going to be held back by the smoke. Not much utility left, but MiGHTYMAX with a fairly easy kill. However, quickly traded out, and there's still time for the T's to make a move in that direction. You can see Surreal actually getting a little bit more aggressive to try and deny the push elsewhere. And now they're going to wrap back around, try and make their way through short. Crucial's waiting, but the flash is good and actually misses his first shot. He needs to try and deny them getting any closer, and he's just unable to connect at the moment, leaving them in a bit of trouble as his teammates fall around him. He needs to try and drop that bomb, but he misses once again. 3 whiffs equals a round for Hard Legion as Surreal is too far away to do anything.
Yeah, Surreal gets 1 kill, but it's very much too little too late at this point. And that's the risk you run when you commit to that position on the site with the AWP. If you commit to that ramp, as soon as you miss 1 or especially 2 shots, Hard Legion are going to start to close the distance. They're going to start to get up close onto the site. And that's where Crucial has very few options left available other than landing some close-range kills, which is difficult to do on that ramp position. So as soon as you miss those easier shots to begin with, you actually end up putting yourself in a much more difficult position, and you can start to panic. And you see there, Crucial not able to get anything done on the whole. Definitely needed more from him in that round. He might go back to the more passive way of holding A in the future, considering those shots that were missed. But that's not going to be a factor in this round, because there's no AWP in play. It's a full save for Endpoint, other than 1 or 2 nades and a deg bought by Thomas. So this is another round that should be easy for Hard Legion. Although Endpoint got a couple of kills with the pistols last time out, so we'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah, not really expecting much in this one at all, but you do have to feel if Crucial isn't able to step up his game a little bit, because that's the thing, all he really needed to do was get a kill or 2, and then that would have been a relatively easy round. But instead, the missed shots just allowed too much space for the opposition, and well, that ended up being his doom. A fairly slow round from Hard Legion, though. Not going to be over aggressive here, just be relatively passive and wait to see if there'll be any aggression elsewhere. For the CT side, basically just trying to stack up a few players together, allow for some crossfires. MiGHTYMAX actually hitting a dink, and Thomas has found a kill as well. This could start to get a little bit scary. Another dink actually hits svyat down to just 19 HP. forZe tagged, and they've got to be careful.
Here's that patented Krad aggression moving into the B site. I think he took a flash from his teammate in the back there, but he gets the entry he was looking for, and the door being open allows him further fights. A complete cleanup in the end for Hard Legion, but a couple of players going down low on health, 2 of them dying off outright. Another round against Pistols that was uncomfortable for Hard Legion, but at least they get it over the line for a 5-2 lead. And Endpoint continue to be the team that are having the money issues throughout this half. Crucial, once again, is without the AWP. That makes that A site a bit more difficult to hold on to. We saw previously, even with the AWP, he couldn't hold the A site. So now that they've got the rifles, they might have to switch that up. And the A-long fights will come through early. It's Krad going out into the open. First fight won. And Endpoint are going to stick around here. This is risky now. Krad is going to be dealt with. And Thomas just about holds on to that long position.
Endpoint desperately need to come out on top of this one with what they currently have in play. But instead, they've kept long, but they've lost short. A good adaptation from Hard Legion. Just basically using that aggression from Krad. And this is kind of what I mean. It's very hit and miss for him. These pushes have just been basically faces each time in 1v1s, not a whole lot of support from his team, but because they've been working, it opens up a lot of space, a lot of positions where his teammates can try and capitalize. Already, kinqie is going to open back up, giving them a man advantage, tapping away, and Surreal burns as he tries to cross towards the site. It leaves robiin with no choice but to save, and the Swede is probably not going to be too happy about this one. A 6-2 lead already for Hard Legion, and although we can see these heavy streaks going up on the T side on occasions, I wouldn't gamble on the fact that Hard Legion are going to let this one slip away.
No, I don't think so at this point. 6-2 lead. We haven't seen much from Endpoint. You can go ahead and use the SLTV code over on Hellcase, SLTV15, for a 15% refill bonus. That's what Endpoint would be wanting right now, because their money has been a problem throughout this game. They haven't been able to get it going, and it's another round where they don't have enough for the buy. Pistols across the board. These are rounds that Hard Legion have had some issues with, though, in part because of the way they play, in part because of the aggression they've gone for. They've been willing to take solo fights against these Pistols, which is always a worry. And over on the B side of the map, Endpoint, I thought, might be lining up some aggression, but Surreal, I think, took a bit of nade damage. He's going to go ahead and slow it down. Haven't seen too much CT aggression so far, but this is a round where they are pushing up short and through the tunnels.
Yeah, Rage misses his shot and, well, leaves Krad to fight alone, but Krad is going to get away with it. Max just patiently waiting, and forZe has fallen. A chance for an AK, but retrieval won't be easy. The nade dunking down actually does a lot of damage, and again, these Pistols, they're being a little bit more dynamic with the way they play these rounds. More aggressive, more faces, and it's going quite well for the UK side. However, Rage is just ruined Crucial. Straight through the box, leaves robiin alone to try and hold on the ramp, and again, it's going to be Krad and kinqie to combine. And although it gets, again, very close, a little bit dicey, they're still closing out all of these rounds.
Yeah, Krad continues to find success with his aggressive play, though, which is always concerning if you are on the CT side. It can be difficult to deal with. And also, the rest of the team are reacting off the back of Krad's aggression, which is the main thing that Hard Legion need to have working for them. kinqie's having a solid game as well, up there at 11 kills. You were saying earlier, he's normally more of a supportive element. So seeing him up near the top of the scoreboard, it gives Hard Legion a bit of that extra firepower they can sometimes lack. And early into this round, Hard Legion pushing down mid, but robiin is here to meet them. This same nade being deployed, it is going to do some damage, and eventually robiin gets the kill he was looking for. Trade comes back around, and robiin's committed to this position. Flash comes in, and forZe eventually gets the kill he was looking for as they move back to the tunnels and back towards this B site, where Max is alone on the hold.
He's had a bit of a rough one so far, but will eventually be able to pick up the kill, and the incendiary should be able to deny any further pushes. Even still, though, he's got no support. The other two players haven't rotated. They've just left him alone, and forZe, well, it's a risky play through the smoke, but it pays off, and I'm not sure what the decision was there from Endpoint. I guess maybe expecting the opposition to rotate away, or thinking maybe they had a little bit of extra time for that rotation. Instead, it's gone a little bit wrong, but Crucial, he spotted his opponent. The scope didn't give anything away for svyat. It's like, he's picked an interesting spot to scope him, but didn't make the connection that he had been spotted. Pulls things into, well, now a 1v2 as Crucial has everything to do, and unfortunately no head to do it.
Yeah, it looked like in that round, Endpoint realized that when they had pistols, their aggression was working for them. So they tried it on a gun round this time round, and it doesn't work too well for them just because of the fact that they end up getting traded on short, and then they leave B so vulnerable. And Hard Legion were quickly aware of that fact. You see there, 2 players boosted up on short, trying to fight aggressively. The weakness there is that you know there's going to be a vulnerability elsewhere on the map. You know that with 2 players boosted on short, it's probably the B site that's weaker. And with MiGHTYMAX being there alone, he could only do so much. He could only hold them off for so long before Hard Legion were able to run him over on that B bomb site. So an 8-2 lead now. Hard Legion getting it going here on Dust2. It's been a slow start for the Endpoint boys. I know it's early over in the UK, even earlier than it is here, but that's still not enough of an excuse to have this slow of a start.
Yeah, and it's even just been like positions being left open, players being able to exploit fairly simplistic pushes. I don't think Hard Legion are reinventing the wheel on Dust2. I'd be very impressed if they did.
Yeah.
This map has been out for such a long time. But again, it's these pistols that seem to be causing so many issues. svyat, again, will eventually trade things back. But it even just seems at the moment, even on an individual level, Endpoint just aren't matching up at all. Like, we're having players being able to just solo push into angles and just instantly win fights. Krad has been having a field day, and as said, like when we saw him play against not even necessarily like much better teams, but just better teams in general, he did nothing. Like they were able to shut him down very easily. So I do wonder if maybe them playing at like at tournaments like this gives them a little bit of a false positive, like, oh, this is the way to play, because we've seen teams make aggression work. I think Nemiga are a prime example of how it can, because they play very risky Counter-Strike, but it still manages to surprise the top teams more so, even if you consider Gambit youngsters as well. Like taking a series off of Na'Vi was very impressive, and they do play aggressive Counter-Strike. The thing is, he plays solo aggressive Counter-Strike, which is very, very different. There's no like squad mentality. It's more just him as a man just running into positions and taking fights. And if you're struggling to shut that down, well, that's where just on a skill basis he must be better, because that's all it comes down to.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of the problem for Hard Legion when they go up against the higher teams, like you were saying, is that that solo aggression, if you don't tell your teammates what you're doing, or if you don't have a plan at the start of the round, I think is the main thing, then it feels like Hard Legion are always just a few seconds late on some of their calls, where they realize that Krad's pushing something. They maybe realize that there's a weakness elsewhere because of Krad's aggression. They just can't make the most of it quickly enough. It always feels like they're a few seconds late on a bunch of those reads. But here's the switch up for Endpoint. Double AWP setup. Surreal getting one into the mix. Crucial holding long with this AWP. We haven't seen him in this particular position too often, but he's holding the angle, and he's going to land the shot. The flashbang doesn't make a difference. The smoke may cause him some issues, and Thomas goes down. Crucial's got a second kill, but kinqie apparently doesn't get him through the smoke, according to the kill feed. Looked like it was pretty much through the smoke to me, but either way, it's a 2v3 for Hard Legion to try and turn around.
And they have been doing that throughout this match so far. The issue is only one smoke, but he's actually done a very good job of covering off the majority of the angles. There are gaps, there have to be, because that smoke can't cover off the entirety of the long cross, but he's going to make it, and that puts them in a position where they can now at least get the bomb down. They have kinqie picking up the AWP, so if he can get a decent after-plant position, at least behind the boxes, it will set them up quite nicely. Now, obviously, he's going to Molotov out that back box because, well, anybody being there could completely ruin his day. And in fact, kinqie's going to peek. This seems unnecessary. He just needs to try and get the bomb down. Instead, being naded to oblivion, TK comes in for MiGHTYMAX, and now kinqie is screwed. I'm perplexed as to why that was the game plan there, and the peak just not going to work. Hard Legion, I feel like they could have won that clutch, in all honesty, but didn't want to plant the bomb.
I don't know what kinqie's scared of there. Like, you know that you're safe from CT because your AWP's just peeked it. I mean, there can be players on short with nades, sure, but that's not enough of a concern where you just don't plant the bomb. I guess in theory an A long flank would have been possible, but he's going to see your teammate before he sees you.
Yeah.
Oh, it was svyat, sorry, who was on the site, who just didn't end up planting. And yeah, that could have been winnable, like you were saying. There's that team kill from MiGHTYMAX.
It's the right thing to do.
Yeah,
I know it looks silly and I did something to laugh at, but that is the right thing to do. And again, we go back to basics for Hard Legion. a long push, using the timing. Honestly, I think forZe is one of those players that we have to watch for the future. I think he's a real talent. There's not many players where I think on the T side can be super aggressive, take fights and win a lot of duels, but then also be a great anchor. Like that's not something that is really too common in Counter-Strike, because normally that player running in and being aggressive is the star and plays more of a rotational role, or maybe plays, for example, the A side where he's able to maybe have more impact. Instead, he's actually a B side defender here. Thomas though, that's big. A double kill with the UMP. It doesn't seem to matter though as they reface, and it all just comes down to being far too easy for Hard Legion. Again, we see these impressive T-sides coming out from the CIS squads over the last couple of weeks, and it's going to continue here with Hard Legion. 10 rounds already. The CT side left in a position where they can't even purchase. And I'll be honest, Alex, like this looks awful.
I mean, you said it. I'm not gonna be so harsh on my UK boys, but yeah, it's not ideal.
Hey,
I think is the nice way of saying it.
But that doesn't mean that this has been a good showing.
I mean, you also live in Ukraine now, so you've got mixed allegiances in general.
I still stand by one of the weirdest things that has ever happened to me is I have bumped into arguably two of the most famous esports players ever, just randomly in two different cities as well. So I bumped into Simple in my local supermarket. Now I decided, firstly, there's a high chance that Simple has no idea who I am, and secondly, didn't want to say anything because let's let the bloke live his life. I'm sure he gets a lot of pictures and a lot of people talking to him. I just let him, and he was behind me in the queue, by the way, not just like walking around. That was weird. And then I went to Lviv. Now, I know nothing about Dota, but I have been told that Dendy's a fairly famous bloke. Like, I know who he is, and I know nothing about that game.
Yeah, same.
And but my girlfriend pointed out, we walked just past him in Lviv. He lives there. And I was like, I recognize her face. She go, yeah, that's Dendy. I'm like, what are the chances of that? In the whole of Ukraine, I've probably met two of the most famous ones, and not at events, but you know, it happens. Obviously, I've spoken through that round because again, it was an anti-eco, and although they've been close, Endpoint have won a total of 0 of those, so I wasn't really expecting them to win.
You know what the big question everyone's going to have, Tom, is what was Simple buying at the supermarket?
I don't remember.
Oh,
I'll be honest,
on,
I was more just surprised at seeing Simple. I wasn't really focusing. I think it was with one of his mates, so maybe getting a few drinks. Who knows? But yeah, I decided to leave him alone that day because I thought, you know what, he probably gets harassed quite a lot.
I'm sure he does. Well, Hard Legion, 4 players stacked in the tunnels, and they're about to find some action here. forZe holding the angle, loses against Surreal. robiin gets one of his own, and all of a sudden, the push is completely dismantled. kinqie tries to turn around, but that is a very quick round of Counter-Strike in favor of Endpoint. If only they could have had more of those throughout the half.
Yeah, it almost seems like pure aggression was the recipe to pure aggression. Like they push. It's very well. It's not very often you're going to see a team push 2 players all the way through short, into tunnels, back to upper tunnels, and then kill 2 people. Like that's not a common strategy. It's not something I think Endpoint will do regularly, but.
It kind of worked perfectly because there were 4 players stacked in tunnels. Yeah. Normally you'd have someone with eyes on mid or someone with eyes somewhere. Or maybe just someone in lower tunnels even would have given them the info earlier.
Well, that's even the thing with this Hard Legion side is that when I speak about the fact that they're not very good at adapting, it does seem like they have an idea in their head from maybe the beginning of the round, and unless something drastic changes that, they're just dedicated to it. And that can work, that can be fine, but as said, when things go a little bit wrong, that's where you can see this team crumble.
Yeah, and that's the issue I have with Krad as well. I feel like they don't react to Krad's aggression a lot of the time, where you'd think they would know that that's going to be happening, but they still don't seem to make the calls off the back of him. But here we go, a much-needed T-side pistol for Endpoint, pushing onto this A-bomb site. 2 smokes for the cross. They are going to get the bomb down pretty safely, and robiin is fighting his way over at A-long. 2 quick kills with the Glock. Surreal here to back him up. It's not a good fight for either player. This is a round they'll both want to forget, but Endpoint have only got 2 players left trapped on this A site. Hard Legion have got to make sure they at least close the distance somewhat soon here. svyat's got the kit. Endpoint is so uncomfortable, though. Look at them moving back and forth between these positions. forZe's got the shot, and Thomas has got 3 players to find. He's somehow still alive. Finally, he falls, and svyat should have time with the kit for the round win. Craziness all across the board.
That shot from forZe was BS. Like that's just unreasonable. Like for a second I was like, maybe it was the player on the left. No, he hit the jumping headshot. And that's just filth.
Here we go.
Oh, we're gonna get it from his POV. Yeah, but let's slow it right down. That is dirty.
The dude was like behind the box, basically.
Yeah, it doesn't even look like he was aiming at him. That's so tilting as well, because you kind of look in that situation and you think Endpoint really could have won that. Like the time was ticking quite far down at that point, and yeah, that's a shame. Interesting that two players actually haven't invested into head armor here on the CT side. Something you quite commonly do, especially if you've got an SMG, because, well, for obvious reasons, the T side probably aren't going to have much into this round. They may have been expecting them to force up, but even still, like if there were Mac 10s or your P250, that can be enough. But yeah, still looking like a round that Endpoint can't really have a chance in, and they basically just saved their money for the next round. Of course, the loss bonus will be enough for them to get a reasonable buy, and I actually quite like this from them. Normally, I am an advocate for forcing up in these rounds because you can come up with a buy as good as your opposition, but in this case, they can pretty much come in with a full buy and have a much bigger chance of fighting back from such a huge deficit than just going, okay, let's risk it with a few Galils. If we lose, we basically lose the map.
Yeah, they don't need to risk it for the chocolate biscuit. They can wait and get themselves a full meal. AK's into this round over on the Endpoint side. I think something you said previously, Tom, was that this game seems to have come down to whoever goes aggressive more ends up winning. That's not a game you want to play against Krad. Let's be real. And he is currently top fragging on the Hard Legion side.
In which
that's
case
true.
You can do that and they will get destroyed, because that's exactly what they did to them on the train. But here we go. A lot of damage done in the early stages to the CT side, but there are going to be trades back and forth. Krad with the repeak, and I can understand it, but it probably wasn't really worth it. CT's are going to boost Rage back onto the site just to try and regain some control. They've lost long, so the obvious choice is to try and take away short, meaning that the split's not going to be anywhere near as valuable. Now, they do still have robiin lurking, so they have to be fairly careful in this situation, because they can't afford to lose another player, especially with forZe being so low elsewhere on the B site. Any sort of rotation would be a serious issue, and I like this from robiin. He's clearly heard the footsteps. He knows that they've aggressed in this angle recently, so now he's going to look to try and take short control. And this leaves Rage in a horrific position, but he still gets the kill. That's quite surprising. And this now leaves the T side in a pretty awkward spot, because they've only got long. They're waiting to see if anybody's going to peek, and Crucial does have his AWP. I really don't like these faces from Rage, but I guess he's got away with it.
Yeah, Rage seems very sure that short is safe as well. He's just completely focused on long right now, but now he's got the information. He can just sit in this corner and wait patiently. kinqie's here alongside his teammate. They don't even use their smoke. Surreal just takes the fight straight up, but Rage is still here, fighting hard from the site itself. Oh, he has to reload, but he switches to the pistol, and he just absolutely domes MiGHTYMAX. Just Crucial left alive, 1v2, and Rage is going for it again. USP in hand, dangerous fight to take, but Crucial has got to get these kills, and it's not going to happen for him. Rage stepping up on the A site there. He survived for so long. I mean, the whole round, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know how. Like, especially, like, the short, he should have died from short initially, but he got the timing very, very well. Like, the only thing that irritates me a bit is why Endpoint was so disjointed. Like, you had a player up on short, you had 3 players on long. If you go together, or even if just the players on long peek first, there's 3 of you, so that should be what you're doing. Send the 3 players to fight. It's a free kill for robiin, because no one's looking in that direction anymore. Instead, he peeks, he dies, and now you're just trying to go through long. It's horrible, and wow, this round is pretty much as bad as it gets. I'm liking this Rage we're seeing, though. A little bit more confident. Maybe the removal of the coach has actually freed him up a little bit, because that was one of the things I really disliked seeing them during the We Play Clutch Island, is the fact that he seemed such a passive and almost worthless AWPer. It sounds harsh, but
wow.
like, he just never really did anything. Whereas that round was very aggressive, taking fights, and for a player called Rage to be passive it just seems wrong. It's almost like Little John from Robin Hood. Like, he's actually huge. Like, that's the joke. So maybe he's called Rage because he's actually very passive. But
maybe he just keeps his rage on the inside, Tom. It's all internalized rage.
Yeah, that's me.
Which I think is just depression, isn't it? Isn't that anger against the self is depression, I think?
I don't know. You
I
can
don't
be
know.
an angry person without being depressed.
Oh,
I'm
sure, but
definitely an angry person.
okay.
Especially when I play Counter-Strike. But then again, I'm not that good at keeping it in.
Oh god. I think we're learning that Tom is just like every one of Snow White's dwarves. Oh my god, I've just completely
What were you
messed
about
that
to
up.
say? 7 wives,
Yeah,
dwarves?
I was so how many dwarves does Snow White have? Is it 7?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, but then I said 7 instead of snow.
Ah.
Yeah, I just completely just
Yeah,
twisted my tongue all
7
over the
snow
place.
dwarves is a little bit of a different thing.
No, it is. MiGHTYMAX with a nice kill. Rage landing shots with the AWP now. Really getting
Look
much
at
more
Krad.
involved than we've seen from
Look
him.
at Krad.
Yeah.
Like, what is going on here? He's pushed through long doors with an AWP. Like, this man is a madman. I do genuinely believe he has a bit of a screw loose, but, you know, it seems to work for his squad. Surreal has Rage DC'd? No, he hasn't. He's
No?
just playing games. This is almost mean. And Surreal has absolutely no idea what's going on. That's one of the most dominant performances I've seen in quite a while. At Endpoint, I don't think they've woken up, if I'm being brutally honest. And yeah, that was very disappointing. They got battered. I do think a lot of the time you see these CIS squads doing a lot of work when it comes to their T side. Like even when we were looking at Na'Vi throughout the tournament we just witnessed, that was the case. But this was a battering, and I really don't think the Hard Legion did anything like ridiculously impressive. It was just their individual shone through. Clearly, they've had their Weetabix this morning, and they're ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, you were saying in terms of the T side, how many times did we see like T sides of Train winning over at that tournament? It was just absurd. And T side of Dust2, you can be sure that teams are going to get it on the board, get it over the line. Yeah, that didn't really feel like Counter-Strike, in all honesty. That just felt like a complete whitewash. Endpoint were never
This was a
really in
good
that game.
round.
That was nice.
If we just end the highlights here, then this is a great game for Endpoint.
Yeah.
Like, but from this point onwards, they got absolutely battered. And even the rounds they were managing to win a little bit later on, it was like very close rounds that left their economy in a bit of an awkward spot. They did well with their pistols, I guess, but I feel like I'm sort of clutching at straws here to say that they really did anything in this game. And this man, as I said, I criticized him at the beginning of the game. Like, he's very one-dimensional in his gameplay, but that's the thing. It's sort of like we talk about like a jack of all trades, master of none. I would say that he's the opposite. He's the master of one thing, which is aggression. And if you shut that down early enough in the match, it does seem that Krad falls off and doesn't perform particularly well. But again, that was against, I would say, better opposition. And unfortunately, Endpoint have not really shown us anything to be excited about. Obviously, this is their opponent's map choice. It's a very CIS map. In fact, it was one that we saw in pretty much every single series throughout throughout the week. It came up an awful lot, be it as a pick for one of the teams or a third map in the end. But Inferno's coming up next. I do have a little bit more faith in this one, but again, like when you were at this level of Counter-Strike, there's not really maps that teams don't play. So if you do get down, for example, into the statistics, like 29 maps of Inferno have been played over the last 3 months for Hard Legion. Now, their win percentage is not particularly good, and it is Endpoint's best map by quite a margin. And I've actually been relatively impressed with some of the matches we've seen from them, like taking maps off decent teams. For example, in Blast Rising, they did fairly well. So I think that they can definitely take this back. The problem is, firstly, they have to step up individually. Like we saw Crucial missing shots. We saw Max have a poor performance. It really wasn't a good game for anyone on their side. So, but that's fine. You now go into your map choice, and you've got to feel like, okay, we can bring this back. And yeah, this is exactly what I mean. If the map's best players are one team,
Hey, Max is in there for some reason.
yeah, actually,
Not sure why.
That's interesting. I think that's. I'm gonna be honest. I think that's a mistake. And oh wait, that's sorted by kills.
That's why.
So he wouldn't actually be there if it was sorted by rating, which yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, he got the 0.69 though. You know, am I right, guy? And
okay, there's no way Rage had 0
okay,
kills.
there you go. There you go. So this is a small mistake. It is day one of the playoffs, so you know. Sugar honey iced tea happens.
Yeah.
Some people will be able to work out what I've just spelled out, and other people might not understand.
Took me a second, but
yeah.
I got there.
Do you want to know where I stole that joke from?
Sure.
The film Madagascar.
Wow.
And that's the funny thing. Like, you wouldn't think that that film would have that joke in it, but they do. So you gotta keep out when you're watching kids films, which sounds a lot less weird in my head. But I'm gonna go ahead and make the assumption that we are gonna be heading to the break because I can't hear our producer at all. I don't know if you can.
No.
So hopefully we're gonna be back in a short amount of time, and we'll be going into Inferno, which is map number 2.